Welcome back to Zero to Game Dev Hero. Today we will learn about prefabs and how to spawn them with C#. You don't know what prefabs are? Don't worry. At the end of this video you will know. Prefabs are objects that are not in your scene, but as an asset in your project folder. Imagine you have a game where you want to spawn many enemies. Because the enemies should spawn in waves, you don't want them to be in the scene when you start the game. And the amount of enemies should be random every time. In this case, you can create one enemy and then use it as a blueprint for your other enemies. When your wave starts, you can then spawn copies of your enemies. Prefabs are connected to each other. This means that when you change something in your prefab, all instances of this prefab will be updated too. So when you change the enemy's color or give it a head, all other enemies will change their color or receive a head as well. Pretty cool. There is one object in our game that we will spawn pretty often, but that is almost the same every time. It's the pipe. So we can create a prefab for our pipe. Let's do that. Here in our scene, we can create a new object with the name pipe. Inside this object, we can place our sprites for the pipe. We have two of them, one for the upper part and one for the lower part of the pipe. Make sure that your parent object, so the pipe, is in the center of your world, so at the position 0, 0, 0. The objects inside this object, so here the both sprites, will be positioned according to its parent. So when we change this position, something higher, and the position of pipe up, something like this. And now move the parent object to the left and to the right. All objects inside the parent object will be moved and positioned as well. Now we have our pipe object. We can create a prefab out of it. Let's create a new folder for prefabs. So create folder, call it prefabs. And we can as well create a new folder for our scripts so that it's cleaned up a little bit. Scripts. Okay, so let's first move our scripts to the script folder. Okay, and now we can create our prefab. To create a prefab, we just need to pull this game object into our asset folder. You can see that the name of the object in the scene changed the color. This means that the object is a prefab now. We can duplicate the object a few times. And move them a little bit to the left and to the right. And now if we open our prefab from the projects folder, when you click on it, you can see that this view changed. When you go to the scene view, you can see the prefab view. We need to change the rotation. There we go. Now we can see our object. This view is similar to our scene view, but it shows only the prefab. We can change the position of our pipes here, and they will automatically change in all instances of this prefab in our world. That's very handy. So let's move them a little bit further away. And you can see now the pipes changed here as well. The last thing we want to learn in this video is how to spawn prefabs with code so that they do not initially start in the scene. For this, we can create a new object and call it pipe spawner. Here we can first leave the prefab mode. And here we can create the pipe spawner. Then we create a new script that is also called pipe spawner. This script will be responsible for spawning pipes. In the script, we need a reference to our prefab so that the code later will know which prefab to spawn. To create this reference, we just write GameObject pipe prefab. We want to be able to set the reference in our inspector, and we have learned that we need serialize field for this. So we write serialize field. Don't forget to save. And now in our inspector, we can drag the prefab onto the field in the script here. So we go to our prefab folder. Now we select the pipe spawner and drag and drop the pipe prefab onto this field. This prefab can now be used in our script. Now let's spawn a pipe in the start method, so when the game starts, a pipe will be spawned. First, let's delete all those pipes, because we want them to be spawned at runtime. To spawn an object, we can use one of Unity's built-in methods called Instantiate. This method creates a game object. This method needs a few parameters to be able to create a game object. You can see that there are different versions of this method. Those are so-called overloaded methods. We will learn about them later, but for now, you just need to know that there is more than one way to call this method. One possibility is just to give this method the object that it should spawn. We want to spawn our pipe prefab, and this will now spawn our pipe prefab. Another version is where you can give it a position and a rotation so that it spawns at a certain position and a certain rotation. And yeah, let's do that. So let's give it a position. We have learned that we can write a position with vectors, so let's write new vector 3. We need a vector 3 here because Instantiate always works with vector 3 values, but don't worry, you can also use vector 3s in a 2D game. That doesn't matter because then the last value that is not used will always be 0. So here we can write, for example, 3 for the X position and 0 for Y and Z. And if you want to give it a position, you always need to also give it a rotation. Quaternion identity. You don't need to understand quaternions at the moment, but this little statement just tells the object to be in the same rotation as the parent or as the world where it is in. Now we can save. And here in our game, when we hit run, we will see that a pipe will be spawned at the position we wanted it to be. We can restart the game and you can see the pipe is spawned again. But when you stop the game, the pipe disappears. Now you can change here the location, for example, to -3 on the X, and here you can then see that the pipe spawns at another position. So today you have learned how to make prefabs and how to spawn them with code. Another step towards a Flappy Bird game. But there is still a bit missing. Next time we will continue. I hope you liked the video. If you have any feedback or questions, leave a comment. And if you like my content, I would really appreciate it if you would support me with a sub. Thank you for watching and see you next time.